In this video I want to use SQL in order to query my database and do a grouping, and I want to extract the first row that I return. Meaning I don't want to grab the minimum or maximum from my group, I want to grab the entire first row. If we start out with what my table looks like, I have the racing history of the racing horse Oguri Cap, and I want to go into the finish column and find out what was the first time she scored second place, what was the first time she scored first place, third place, and so on. Again, I want to extract the entire first row and not simply grab the minimum value. First, I want to create my window function, which means that for each row of my table, I want to create a filtered view of my data where I then do some operation. In my case, it's to find out what are the other rows with the same finish value. Then I want to sort those values based on my date, and then I want to extract the first row. And I'll do that by adding a row number column, which I can then add a filter to in my outer query. I first need to add the row number, which I can do by selecting everything, and then I want to add my row number, which conveniently the function is called row number over. And then I have to say what is my partition based on, and that is the finish value, meaning I want to create a grouping on this column. Once I've made that partition, I then want to sort my rows based on the date column, meaning I say partition over finish, and I want to order by date. And because the word date is a keyword in Postgres, I have to wrap my column name in normal quotation marks, and then I need to specify what should the column be called. That should be RN, and I want to do it from races. So this gives me the column RN, which we can see it starts out going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, blah, blah, blah. And then it resets down here. And I think what happens is that it's actually added a sort. So let's add another sort from this, because I want to keep the date sorting instead of sorting by the new column. So now this looks more proper, because the first race she got a second place, and the second race she got the first place, meaning our column is then 1, 1, 2, 2, and then it starts incrementing. And then we can see here she got her first third place, and this is what I want. But I only want to extract the first row, but I now have a row number column, which means I can add the outer query. I want to select everything from this inner query. Actually, I don't need to order that, but I want to add a filter on my outer query to say I only want to grab rows where Rn is equal to 1. And then I want to order by finish. And I should write from. Yes, and that gives me what I want. Now have one row for each position that Oguri Cap got, and it's been sorted by that column. And this is also what I want to output from the other solutions. We can add that this is a window function, which might give bad performance. As mentioned, the second solution is only possible in Postgres because I want to use a function called distinct on. Very easy to write. I say I want to select distinct on what column, that is on the finish column. And then what do I want to grab? I want to grab everything from the races table. And then I can select only this row in order to run it. And we get the same result. And this is incredibly simple because distinct will normally say remove duplicates. Actually, we can run that and see what that gives. That only gives the finish column, but I want to grab everything from the table, meaning I actually want to use this as a filter. That's what the distinct on function does, but this only exists in Postgres. The third solution is a more general solution where I want to create a grouping that I can then do a join on. I can do this instead by doing a group, which means I only do that operation once. And then I can do an inner join because I know that my date column is unique, which means there's no need to do a window function since I only have to do that grouping once. I want to start out by creating a CTE, common table expression, which is basically a variable that holds my table. That way it's a bit easier to do my join instead of having to do a nested query or subquery. I want to create that CTE and call that grouped races. And I want to set that to equal, select the minimum date. Again, I need to add quotation marks around it because date is normally a keyword. Here I have it as a column. And again, this works because the date column is unique because Oguri Cap only did one race per day. I also want to output that as date because then it's the same. And then I also need to grab the finish column because that's what I actually want the unique values from. And I want to do a grouping by finish. And since I do a grouping by finish, that's why I need this aggregate function, which is conveniently what I also need to do. I can now reference this CTE in my main query by saying I want to select everything from the races table. And then I want to do a join, which at baseline is an inner join, which we can make explicit by writing inner join. I want to do an inner join on grouped races, using the races.date column to equal the date column from the grouped races table. And then we also get the exact same result if I wrote that correct. And I don't need a parenthesis here. I actually need that at the end. So now that's proper. because I need to write my CTE inside parentheses. So actually we can run this by only highlighting that and then pressing the play button, and we can see I get the minimum value for the given position. And now we can select the whole thing and play it. And then we get all of the columns, and actually I get the finish column twice, which I guess is fine. But if you don't want that, you could just say to remove it. And unfortunately, I don't think SQL has a function to say grab every column except for one specific column, like you can do in Power Query. I can live with having a duplicated column. But again, this should give us the exact same table, except this hasn't been sorted. Let's actually sort them all. So now when I play this and I play this, I should get the exact same result. And actually I can see I needed to explicitly add the ordering in order for my first query and my third query to give the same result, as we can see when we update, except my third query has 2 extra columns. But I also forgot that when I do this select distinct on column query, I need to specify that it has to order by finish and the date. I guess when it has a conflict, that is Oguri got the same finish position multiple times. I don't know how Postgres decides how to select a row, but it's definitely not the same output. But I can remedy that by explicitly saying that you need to order by finish, and in case you have multiple of the same, I then want to order by date. And then if we select it, it should be the same. It looks like it. That is something I'd want to add as a comment. But in any case, now we have 3 different solutions. One that's a window function, and on such a small data set it doesn't matter, but on a bigger data set you'd want to use a proper grouping, which isn't that much harder to do than using the row number function. So definitely use this one, but if your database is Postgres, then you may as well use this code, unless it's important that your output can be copied to other systems. Then you'd want to use a grouping and a join, because this should be the best performance. But again, it takes 69 milliseconds or 77 milliseconds. I think it is. I think that's fine. So, yep,